Good afternoon. It's 26 minutes after 5 o'clock. It's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is Labour's private school plan unravelling? Now, a second private school has blamed Labour's tax raid for closure. Sir Keir Starmer has promised to charge private schools 20% VAT, as well as ending the business rate relief. That's if he comes into power after the next general election. The party estimates that this will raise about £1.7 billion of funds to be spent on state schools. Bear in mind the full school funding budget is around about £116 billion. Labour, however, have been urged to abandon its plans to charge VAT if the budget watchdog says that it will not make any money and cost the taxpayer. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is Labour's private school plan unravelling? Well, joining me now is the former Labour spokesperson James Mathewson and also head teacher Christine Caniff. Right, I'm going to start with you. James Mathewson, so we've got another private school shutting, saying that this was the straw that broke the camel's back, and you've got the OBR now suggesting to the Labour Party that it may not make any money and they'll close it down, or suggest that it's closed down if it doesn't. And you've also now got unions saying, hold on a minute, teachers saying they're scared of losing their jobs. Is this plan unravelling, James?
I hope not, is the answer. I don't think it is, looking at the wide-scale kind of scope of the plan as a whole. But I do think, you know, there has to be consultation. People have to be listened to and involved, and that includes the private school sector. I don't think they should be, you know, written off altogether and dictated to entirely. However, we do have to remember that, you know, whilst certain private schools be hit by this, and I mean, we're talking, you know, about people saying that it's the straw that broke the camel's back already. Labour aren't even in power. Labour haven't won an election yet, so it's fascinating for that to be the case already.
Well, no, if you think about it, no, parents plan ahead. No, that's you've got to be honest, but they're planning ahead, so parents will be looking at putting their kids in these schools in the coming years and months and so on and so forth, so that is why.
That has to be factored in, and private schools are businesses at the end of the day, and they have to be viable. What is it that Conservatives always say about the private sector and about, you know, the free market? You have to be a viable business. You don't have the right to exist, and it's exactly the same with private schools. They exist for profit at the end of the day, and they need to be able to support themselves, and this is just a factor of that, and that shouldn't stop us from proposing a really good policy, which overall is a really good policy and a solid policy that will benefit so many more children and help be the tide that raises all boats.
Is that true, though? Is that true? Let's go to Christine Caniff. Will this policy be of a benefit to help with the state sector?
One word, no. And today has been a really frustrating day, and it started off with Yvette Cooper with Camilla Tominey this morning, asked directly 4 times how this would work, and there was no answer at all. There is no answer because there are no plans. There's no outcomes that support this policy. Everything is going against it. The Adam Smith Institute, the national papers, the unions, the OBR, what more?
Well, it does seem, James, that everything is going against it. Also, that sector, if you imagine the mental trauma of a child having to come out of their school, especially many doing GCSEs and, you know, at very important times, there's about 500,000 kids in these schools. Surely Labour won't make the money it intended if a large portion of those, so far estimated 40,000, leave.
Yeah, but I just don't see that being the case. And if you have the money to send your children to private school, this is a luxury, remember. This is a luxury. We have a fantastic state school system in Britain, full of passionate teachers, full of passionate educators, and people who do a huge amount with a very little amount that is given to them. So I think that, you know, to talk about this as if it's some kind of right or requirement for everyone to have access to, private schools give people one thing, and they cause a huge amount of inequality in our country. And the reason why, and it's not out of, you know, kind of some evil conspired plan by the elites to keep things elite. Of course it's not. But it happens because people want to give their children the best opportunities to send them to these schools. But what they get from those are confidence. And I mean, I've worked with so many people at Westminster with an inflated self-sense of confidence.
Yeah, but do you think that's possibly the problem with the perception of private schools? This school that is closing, I think about 1/3 of the pupils are special needs kids, so, you know, who cannot be in larger environments in big schools. Christine, is this part of the problem, this perception that private schools are for the elite, as it were?
Yeah, 100%. The thing is, no politicians will come down and actually take a look at our schools. And there's a reason that I was brought up in the state sector. I get it. I taught in the state sector. But there's a reason why 600,000 sets of parents choose to come to private schools. And if you want to talk about social divide, once the children have to leave, they'll force themselves, they've got the means to be able to be tutored into the grammar schools. It will create a further social divide.
Surely, I absolutely agree with.
Well, surely you'll only end up with the elites in these schools if you price everybody out, and that won't. And
you don't price anybody who can pay for their children's education anyway is already, head and shoulders above where many of the rest of us are in society at the moment. So it causes that, to say that it stops inequality because it allows some inequality anyway isn't necessarily true. But Christy makes a good point there, I think, about things like the grammar schools and the academy chains and those chains, those situations where people have to tutor their kids to give them that advantage, and that is like a middle class access to another elite form.
Very quickly then, okay, very quickly, I just need to get to this. Okay, so you're sort of talking about elites and everything. What about the damage that it will do to the kids and also the kids in the state sector, which will have to mop this up, James, very briefly?
I don't see how it would cause any damage to children in the state sector. If we're talking about children from the private sector,
because you've got more children at the school, haven't you? So what about if are these state schools ready?
Provision in the state school sector anyway.
I'm going to go Christine. Final word to you, Christine.
Yeah, I mean, I agree there has to be a best education for all children, but it's not by ripping apart an independent sector that actually do support children where there are no fees, bursaries, scholarships, and those children in need. And for those of us that are a charity, giving away to the needy on a daily basis.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, James Matthewson and Christine Keneath.